And that little musical interlude that we all enjoyed was Dreamers, and that's from our guest today, Mr. Steve Barakat. Now, Mr. Barakat, Dreamers was the piece we heard. Earlier in the conversation, I mentioned some of the labels that are on your website, artist, entertainer, ambassador. Another one is philosopher. And I think it seems appropriate if we just hear one of your pieces, Dreamer, that I ask you about the philosopher aspect. Why would your website describe you as a philosopher?
Well, it's a side of me that I have which is linked with own introspection of people. I'm very curious about it. I think also music is a great platform for people to imagine special situations or also go back to their mission. And without being too, philosophical. I still think that for example, the ad vitam aeternam music was created as, instead of having a main character, or like in opera, for example. Ad vitam aeternam is all a life experience, but not my life experience. Again, I go back to what Steve Barakat is creating is mostly about creating a place where people can imagine something or think about something. So if for an hour and a half you can see a life starting from life evolution, then you get old and again you're gonna die. That's the reality of life.
Sure, yeah.
But how many times a year we really think about it?
Yeah, not
because
many.
we don't have a lot of time.
Right.
So Ad Vitam Aeternam was created for allowing people to say, I'm sitting for an hour and a half to think about my life, actually. Not the life of a character.
Yeah.
Not the life of someone who's singing or
Right.
complaining.
Yeah.
Or just about something very introspective. If the term is good in English.
Introspective. Yes, absolutely right.
Comes from my
Introspective.
French. Yeah.
No, it's exactly right. And, you know, it's very fitting. That's the common thread, I think, throughout our conversation today, is that what you're doing, you're not doing for yourself. You're doing it for the audience, wherever they may be. They may be sitting in a concert hall listening to some of your music. They may be joining you on your recent project that you've launched, say, on Facebook or with the greeting cards or other things. But it does seem to be such the Rainbow Bridge story, of course, I'm referring to. It does seem to be such a common thread that you are about sharing.
Or on the KTX.
Or on the
first time I
KTX?
went
What
on
happened? Tell us about
first
that.
time, it's a very funny story because first time I was on the KTX, so I'm going to another city and the train stops.
Yes.
And then I hear California Vibes.
Okay.
So I think it's my mobile phone or something that
Right.
I own or,
Right.
or I have on me. No. So I realized that, okay, my friend beside me says, it's playing every station at every stops. So then the next
That's yours.
Yes. So then I fell asleep and I could not sleep because every station, every time it stops. And I thought they did it because I was on the train. I said, how they knew? Maybe there's the name on on the ticket.
Yeah.
No, KTX used my music on every stops.
Well, and again, when we started off the program today with Rainbow Bridge, I'm sure that's a piece that everyone went, oh, wow, it's that guy, because maybe not knowing the name. And again, for me, the KTX is another one. I've ridden the KTX, hundreds of times, if not thousands, honestly, and heard that music equally hundreds of times. But now here I am talking to the man who wrote and performed the piece as well, or just wrote the piece.
It's on my
wrote and performed
one of my albums. Yeah,
fantastic. Well, if any of our listeners are listening, maybe on our smartphone application, and they are maybe on the KTX, and if you hear that music, this is the gentleman who wrote it and performed it, and it's an honor to have Steve Barakat in the studio today on TBS eFM's Inside Out. And of course, we are being recorded as well for the TBS eFM digital magazine, which you can download from tbsefm.soul.kr. Mr. Barakat, I'd like to move on to another label, but this one doesn't come from your website. This is a label that is often attributed to you here in Korea. And it's maybe fitting given the relative time of year and something we talked about a little bit earlier, but that's the label of romantic. Do you think that's an appropriate label to describe you? Are you a romantic person?
Well, I think romance is in the eye of the beholder.
Interesting. Yes. Okay.
I don't think that I'm that romantic.
Okay. Maybe we should ask your wife.
But exactly.
As you said, in the eye of the beholder.
Exactly.
Yeah, she may see things
But I have
that you
the
don't see.
firm intention, though, when I perform to create the moment or the special moment. A few days ago I was here for the White Day concert.
Right.
And I saw in the eyes of the audience during, when I was performing, I felt like they were holding each other's hands.
Sure.
And I felt like this is creating romance in a way.
Yeah.
So yes, I must be romantic. As a person, I mean, it's hard to answer, as you said.
Yes.
You can ask the question to my wife.
Yeah. Well, I wish I have the opportunity. Creating romance. Again, I think that really hits the nail on the head. And I think, again, that fits with the thread of our conversation today. You're creating things to be consumed by the people, but not necessarily to dictate what it does to them. They're going to have their own sort of reaction to it. Of course, if it is a White Day concert, then presumably there's going to be more of a focus on, love and emotion. But people are going to interpret that, in different ways. It's going to mean different things to different people. And so again, you're just sort of the start of everything, and then people take it
It's
from
closer
there.
to poetry. The way I approach music is like poems.
Yeah.
So when you read a poem, you can then start your own imagination.
Right.
And I think it's part of Asian culture in general. If you look at the writing, when you know a little bit more about writing, for example, Korean language or Chinese or Japanese language, there's an imagination part of it. The word is not just a word, it's depending in the context.
Sure.
And it's not really as precise. It is precise, but it's also stimulate
You're right.
your imagination.
You're exactly
and
right.
it's lots of little pictures creating something new or something that meaningful.
Yeah, absolutely.
But you need to do the research on your own. You need to stimulate your own imagination.
Yeah.
And I think that it's very fascinating. As a Westerner, I found it very fascinating. And I think it's why people love creating their own stories also in Asia. I think it's very Asian. And I think my music fits with this feeling.
Well, I think based on the popularity of your music here in Korea, it needs to be attributed to something more than just the music itself. The music is fantastic, don't get me wrong, but I mean, it's that deeper, I think, underlying sort of stimulating the imagination that you mentioned that is probably really one of the factors to its success here. Because again, as you did at the very start of our conversation, your observations are very, very astute. They're very, very sharp observations that the language, and the written language especially, the poetic language. And having said that, we are going to wrap up our conversation today here on TBS eFM's Inside Out and invite you to come back next Saturday, 9:05 for more. And we are going to leave you again with a song. This is, what song else could it be? Rainbow Bridge.